y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. You know, the show where I invite people virtually into the blog cabin to chat about life. And today we're chatting all about blended families. Nicole is currently an author and the president and CEO of a company that assists people struggling with addiction, but she also has been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. She has published such books as Blended to Perfection and Dating Made Simple for Women. So welcome to the show, Nicole. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into your journey.
Hi. Thank you for having me, by the way.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I love being here. And this virtual thing is just awesome now.
Tell me about it.
Be anywhere at any time. So my name is Nicole Odom-Hardnett, and I have been an entrepreneur now, let's say legally, for over, it's been 11 years now. It just seems like it just started yesterday. But I've owned several businesses. But now, let's say I started 11 years ago with transitional housing for men. It started with men and women, but I just found that men were a lot easier to deal with. And then that transitioned into assisted livings. And then from there, I went into outpatient drug treatment. And I just recently got licensed, I think last year, for mental health as well. So I have 4 locations in Maryland. And but my assisted livings, let me just go back a little bit. My assisted livings weren't the typical assisted livings for the elderly population. I did a little something different. My clients were duly diagnosed with mental health and drug addiction. So those are the clientele that I housed in my assisted living. They still needed assistance with activities of daily living, just like your senior population, because most of my clients, they had significant mental health issues, whether it be schizophrenia, bipolar, deranged, and they were still dealing with their substance abuse issues. So I've been working with this population for over 20 years now. And it actually found me instead of me, seeking it out. So I'm very comfortable with working with this population. And I plan on opening more facilities. So 4 won't be my limit. It's not my goal, so I haven't reached my goal. I don't know where I'll stop. I actually recently just got licensed for home care in the state of Texas, because now I live in Texas, although my other businesses are in Maryland. So we check on my business quite often, actually, about every 2 weeks. I'm in Maryland, or my husband is in Maryland, because he also has businesses in Maryland. We call ourselves social entrepreneurs, because he has been in business for over 20 years now, and I over 11. So we work very well together. I actually had to bring him into my business because it just took off so fast. And we do have a blended family. We have a blended family of 7. So wow. I have 2, I have 2 lot and a grandbaby, a 2-year-old. So I have 2 biological children. He brought in 5, and we just made magic happen together with all of us. And we just love our family. We just seemed like we were just meant to be together.
I love that. So before we get into blended families, why did you find the heart to help people that are struggling with addiction and people that are struggling with mental illness? Because a lot of times those are the forgotten people in society that people don't want to help. Yeah,
there's a stigma behind addiction and mental health, and it shouldn't be. It's disease. It's just like, cancer or HIV or anything else, or heart disease, or any of that, can strike anyone at really any given time. Those with anxiety, it's no different than any of that. It's just sometimes handled and treated so so poorly by so many people. And, it's said that these individuals are the forgotten few.
Yeah.
And, from a very young age, with my great aunt, I used to stay with them while my mom worked and she went to school. We used to go across the street and we used to take care of the elderly couple while I think it was their niece or someone went off to work. And so at a young age, I was caring for people. And, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just helping my great aunt out. And, I just liked helping people. And I think I was probably about maybe 7, around 5 to 7 at the time. I just enjoyed what I was doing. I was helping my great aunt out. And this happened a couple of times during the week. And, I felt like a big girl. It was my responsibility. I would take this elderly lady, her oatmeal or her Jell-O and help feed her. So I was doing something great. And, I would get a pat on the head and say, okay, it's time to go. Or I would help fold the towels or something like that for someone else. So I was helping take care of someone else at a very young age. So it was instilled in me, and it just happened all throughout life. So I've always been a nurturer or that caretaker, for my kids, for my family, for everyone around me. So it's just always been second nature.
So how have you been able to juggle your business? You just said you moved to Texas, and your businesses are in Maryland. How are you able to make sure that they're running correctly?
I have an awesome clinical director. It took a while to get there. I went through a few, but right now I have an awesome clinical director. I can't give her enough praise. We work well together. We talk several times a day. And with the pandemic and people being remote, and my husband, he travels for his business. He's in Maryland twice a week. So he checks on the offices and I'm there. Now, when we first moved, we've only been here since November. When we first moved, I had a plan to come, every other month. And he come, his routine was going to be every 2 weeks because he needed to be there for his offices more than myself. Because I felt if I came more to my locations, that I would supersede her. And I didn't want to do that because she's the clinical director. She makes the clinical judgments and, I'm just the owner. And the clinical decisions weigh more heavily than me just saying, okay, we're going to, use this type of furniture or this type of lighting or, my decisions are important, but not as important of whether a client is discharged or not. She's making those type of decisions. That's not my decision. So with me taking on my grandson, now it's every 3 months for me that I get to, go to my offices because I took on, I had to take on the family role. So it works out well. Our communication is stellar. We have our virtual meetings. As a matter of fact, we were supposed to have one today, right before our call. But it's going to be a little later on after. So we do weekly meetings that are via Zoom. So I stay in contact with everything. We email. So it's almost like I'm there. I have meetings, with the boards, or she'll fill me in with what's going on. With this clinical director, I wanted to fall back a lot more. Before I was a little more in the limelight. So a lot of the questions from the staff came to me and they were bypassing the clinical director, which is their next line of direction. And it was skipping her. So or him at one time. So, they were out of the loop and things. And I was more like the next in command, which shouldn't be. It shouldn't be coming directly to me. It's supposed to go to their direct supervisor. So this way it's going, the chain of command is going in the right direction.
That sounds like you've got everything lined up. Now, we need to take a brief commercial, but when we come back, I want to know how you juggle your family
Sure.
and doing the long distance as well, businesses. So we'll be right back with that.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Joanna, and I would like to share with you a little bit about Shores of Grace, Shores Philly. It's a ministry located in Philadelphia. The portion of Shores that I volunteer for goes into Kensington, an area greatly impacted by homelessness and addiction. And we go and we take love, food, clothing, snacks, conversation. We believe that it is a way that we can meet people right where they are and show them the love of Jesus. We have seen lives changed in big ways and in small ways, and we have built wonderful relationships with the people in the community. We have big plans, more we'd like to do, and we would appreciate any support, either through prayer or through donation. If you would like to donate, you can go to shoresofgrace.com, and in the menu, click on Donate. And we just ask that you put Philly in your donation comments. Thank you.
And we're back talking with Nicole. Now, before we went to break, we talked about your businesses and you were juggling it, living in Texas, and your businesses are in Maryland. But you also have a blended family. But before we start talking about how you actually did the blended family, how are you juggling family and businesses in another state?
So, family always comes first. So I always make time for my family. They know that I get up early. And they know that I typically knock off at a certain time, at least I try to. But my phone is always on. So anytime my clinical director calls me, I answer, or she knows that I'm going to call right back, no matter what day it is. It could be Sunday at 9 p.m. and she's thinking of something or she needs something. I'm going to answer the phone. So business is always going, even though we're not a 365 agency. We do have 9 to 5 type hours. I'm always working, but family, they can always reach me. I'm always there for whatever my family needs. My kids know that they can always come to me, and as well as my husband. I would say we have pretty good, our communication is really, really good. We can always get whatever we are going through, whether it be, good or bad or anything personal, we can always get it off each other's chest and talk about it. Either whether it be right then and there, or maybe we need a little breather, depending on what it is. Usually by the time we go to bed, it's resolved.
So let's talk about dating and bringing your kids in when you're blending, trying to blend families, because that's got to be like another whole, like dating. The dating scene is enough. Or I can't even imagine going at my age, going back into dating, but having kids and going into the dating scene has to be another thing. So let's talk about your experience and then how you were able to blend your families together.
So we've been together, I think it's been 12 years now. So, when I was dating, I was very protective of my boys. I didn't let them see who I was dating right away until I was, sure that I even wanted them to be bothered with whomever. So I was very selective. At one time, I wasn't dating, or I would just go to dinner or maybe lunch. But before I met my husband, I was in a relationship, and it was a long-term relationship, but we were at a point where I wasn't being bothered really at all. I knew the relationship was over. I was in grad school and that was my focus. I knew it was a bad relationship. He wanted the relationship to go further, but I did not. I was on my game plan and I was like tunnel vision, and I knew I was on my way out of the relationship. He wasn't there yet. He had no idea what I was thinking. And I was like, the heck with him. This thing is over. So at that point, I wasn't worried about meeting anyone else. I wasn't thinking about any guys at all. All I wanted to do is complete grad school, and I was focusing on my kids. I was actually really so focused at one time that my oldest son stayed with me, and my youngest son, I allowed him to stay with my mom because he was only like 7. I think he was like 6 or 7. And I didn't think it was fair for my oldest son to watch a child that young while I was in school. And it was all day on Saturdays. So he was old enough to take care of himself. Of course, he played basketball and things like that. So he had activities to do. But my youngest, he would have been lost, or he'd have gotten in trouble, or they would have gotten in trouble together. So I didn't have to worry about him. It wasn't until I was almost done with school that I met my husband, and I still wasn't looking. We met just by happenstance in a bar because I met a former coworker because he called me up and said, "Hey, let's catch up. What are you doing?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm doing nothing. I'm just watching my best friend's son for her and her husband." He's like, "Hey, let's meet here." And I'm like, "Okay, who's going to be there?" And he was like, "No one." I think it was like maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. I said, "Okay, I have some things to do, but I'll be there." So I was a mess that day. Hair all over my head, t-shirt, leggings, flip-flops. But I did have my nails and my feet done. And I met him. And it just so happened, like maybe an hour later, all these guys in suits showed up. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you did not tell me this. You said no one was going to be there. And here all these guys come in, and I look a hot mess." And that's how I met my husband.
Wow.
Yeah.
The fact that you look a hot mess and he still wanted that's a keeper right there.
Right. But, it took something. As a matter of fact, it was a couple of guys that tried to talk to me. And I'm like, okay, they must be blind or stupid or something, or just desperate because, I look crazy. But he just looked familiar. Like I knew him from somewhere. And so I asked my friend, I was like, "Do you know him?" And he said, "No, I don't think so." So he asked him his name. And then I saw a ring on his finger, just to be honest. And I said, "Ask him, is he what's the situation?" So he asked him, "Hey, what's going on with you? Are you married? What?" So he said yes, but hey, I'm separated. No, he didn't say yes. He said I'm separated. That was his answer. And I'm like, okay, here we go with that. He said, "No, really, I am." I said, okay. So anyway, long story short, I left with 2 cards that day. And so it took a week for me to call him. I called him, but I did some research first. I Googled him, and that's because I read some books and things like that. I Googled him and the other person. And I liked what I saw. I saw some family pictures of him. He was with one of his sons, and they were on an outing and football game, and they were tailgating. And so I called him. I talked to him for a few minutes on the phone. He was like, "Hey, why don't you come to my office? Let's talk." I went to his office, but before I went to his office, I called my cousin. And I said, hey, I'm going to this guy's office. If you don't hear from me again, this is the address of where I'm going. And so we talked, we talked all about the situation and everything like that. I said, okay, we'll see. And everything panned out. All the conversations that we had from that point on, I was very careful. I listened to everything, background noises, everything that I possibly could. If he showed up, if he, let me down or anything, I just paid attention in this situation to see if there were going to be any lies or anything like that. And there weren't. And here we are today.
Wow. So at what point did you decide to introduce the kids into the picture? Because you said he brought 5 kids and you had 2, so you had to blend them. At what point in your dating life did you decide to introduce the kids in?
So my oldest son met him by accident because we went for a walk around the marina and we came back to my place because he had to use the restroom. And my son was supposed to be gone. He played basketball a lot. So he was supposed to be gone playing basketball, and he came in when he was leaving out. And he was like, oh, so is this your new boyfriend? So he says, it's about time.
I love that.
So he says, she's a mean one though. And then he says, well, you might not like her after she passes gas. Remember, I have boys. I have boys. I'm like, oh, gee, thanks. Then he tells him our favorite snack is Cheetos.
That is too funny.
So they shake hands and everything, and then he leaves. But the funny thing is, I knew him. I figured out the day that we saw each other where I knew him from. He actually used to own a child care center, or he still did own child care centers. The first child care center that son, my oldest son, attended.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was like total coincidence. So it was so funny. And for him to see my son again, like he remembered him and everything. So it was just very funny. So we never spoke in any kind of way. And he said he used to watch me come in and out of the daycare center, but never said anything to me. But he remembered, gawking at me, walking in and out of the daycare center.
That is so funny. So that's your oldest son's experience. When did you meet his kids and then he meet the other son?
So I met his girls. So he has 3 girls and 2 older boys. I met his girls. I think the first encounter was the middle daughter was having a fashion show. And I met them at the rehearsal. And it went well. They were, I think, enamored. They were just saying that, oh, she's so pretty, because I used to model. And so I met them there. And the next time we met, I believe it was when he moved out, because him and his ex-wife were still living together. When he moved out, we had dinner at his new place. But he didn't meet my youngest son until my grad school graduation.
Wow.
So he met him there. Yeah, and he was having a little anxiety about one that young, because his youngest daughter at the time, I think she was 13.
Mm.
Yeah. And to have a 7, 8-year-old, he was like, oh my gosh, this is like starting all over again. But when he met my youngest, he was like, oh, he was just so taken back. He was like, he's such a little gentleman. This guy is so cool.
So once you decide to get married, what are some of the tips that you can give other blended families to kind of blend their families together? Because that's going to be hard when you're blending families in your there's a separate mom and a separate dad from all over, it's going to be hard.
It's really hard, especially when, like, his girls, they live with both parents, all of their lives. So it's really difficult in that instance, and especially when you have a parent. I think the most challenging part for us was the other parent, was the ex-wife, feeding information to one in particular. It was to all, but one took the information more so than the others. So therapy early on helps. I would highly, highly, highly recommend that. If you have one of those types of parents who may have a hard time with there being another man or woman in their child's life, in talking to your kids early on, when you know that there's going to be someone else in their life. All that helps, and being honest with the situation when you know you're going to move out, when you know that things are going to happen. And I'm not talking about putting your kids in adult situations, talking about bills and who's going to pay what and who's doing what, but there are certain situations that you should definitely talk to your kids about, like in advance, like when you really know that things are going to happen. You should kind of make them aware, because they already have a lot of stuff going on. They're already in school. They may or may not be going through situations in school that they have to deal with. Then to come home, which is their safe place where it should be, and have to deal with things at home that are, changing on them. It's very difficult for them, and sometimes they can't wrap their minds around it, and they don't know if they should talk to mommy or they should talk to daddy, or it's hard for them, even though most of our kids were teenagers in that whole 13 to 16 or 17 age range. They still have issues. They're still going through that transition where they don't know what's going on with themselves. They are entering, middle school and high school. So that's still a very delicate age range where they have a lot going on. So they need to know what is going on between mommy and daddy. Where do I stand? They need to know.
How did you make it so that his kids and vice versa, him making your kids feel like they were a part of the family? Because that's got to be hard too as well.
The kids did not have a problem with each other, so that was awesome. In our household, the kids, they mess and they jive like right away. It was like they were like really, all of them were like almost felt like biological, like right off the bat almost. And I mean, it helped that my oldest son and my middle daughter, they had the same like kind of friends. They knew the same people. My youngest daughter and my youngest son, they kind of clicked. Even though there's a little bit of an age gap between them, they kind of fell into each other. And it was just I don't know, it was just the nicest thing. So that made it really easy. So we didn't get any like bumping heads with the kids.
I love that. And I also love the fact you said my oldest, my middle daughter, my youngest daughter. I love that. The fact that you're already claiming them as your own. That just makes my heart swell.
Mhm.
But is that one of the reasons why you wrote the book Blended to Perfection?
Yes. That I wanted to talk about, my struggles, but I also wanted people to know like where I came from in my situation as well. To get a little bit of background about me. I thought that that would help also. I've been knocked down a few times, but I've gotten back up. I feel that I'm a pretty resilient person, and I wasn't going to let the trials and tribulations or any struggle that I went through in getting into or going through this blended family, defeat me. Because it was very hard to have another person. I'm not going to say like not like me, but not take to me in my household or in my nest. That it was very difficult for me. And there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. Like I couldn't, or it wasn't a right thing to like buy her things, or you couldn't do anything like that. Yeah, all I could do is just wait. All I had to, that's the only thing I could do is wait and pray about it, and hope that things would get better. And it did over time, because I knew that I didn't do anything wrong, and I just felt so bad that I could not do anything or say anything to make her understand that, I want you to feel better about this situation, because she knew that her mom and dad were not happy or were in a bad way before I came along. And I was upset about that everyone knew that. But I felt like I was being treated like I was the bad guy for something that I didn't do. Like I didn't mess this up. Like it wasn't one of those situations where they were happily ever after, and then I came in and I just tore everything down.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't one of those situations at all. Everybody knew that both of them were seeing other people. They were living separate lives. I just happened to be the one that they divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm one of those, okay, you're either gonna piss or get off the pot.
Yeah.
you know. So I just it was just hurting me that again she was in my nest, and I couldn't, I don't know, make the situation right or better in any way. I just had to wait it out.
So that's probably the best advice that you can give to a step parent is just wait it out.
Yeah, because sometimes you just have, that's the only thing you can do when you know that you've treated this person with respect, you've done right by everyone, and you haven't been nasty or done anything at all outside of you, and it's still not going right. That's all you can do is just wait and pray, and that's it.
How did you because I know with teenagers it's hard to hold your tongue. 'Cause I had 3 teenage girls at one time, so I totally get you. If you saw my opening, those are my 3 girls, so I get you. How did you hold your tongue? Because those hormones go off big time for girls.
Right. Because because of the communication that my husband and I had, and he was letting me in and I think it was because of the other daughters, was they were telling him what was going on with the ex and the things that she was saying about us. Like, she was calling us shackers and things like that. So we knew where we were going with the relationship. We knew that we lived together and our plans was to get married, and we did. But she was saying things like that, but saying it to the kids. And amongst other things. But he was privy to that information, and he was sharing it with me. So the things that they were saying to him, he was sharing with me. So the things that were going on, he would share with me. So that honesty and that openness in our communication made it easier for me to understand. Once I took my personal and my tears and I had to wipe them away, because there were a lot of tears there. Like, I went into, I guess, some depression because I never had anybody treat me like this. Usually, I felt disrespected. You come in the house and you're not speaking to me in my own house, once I was able to back out of the situation and see that someone that she loves, her mother, is giving her information and she's listening to it, which she should, because it's her mom. I understood that why I'm the bad guy, why she's fueling her fury at me. I understood.
Wow. I love the fact that I'm going to go back to the very beginning of the conversation where you talked about how when you met him, you noticed he had a ring on and you wanted to know his situation right away. A lot of women that are so-called desperate or thirsty, and I'm not saying you were, but would have just ignored that ring and just went for it. But you wanted to investigate. So that shows what kind of person you are to begin with. So let's go back to the dating scene, because you also wrote, I'm kind of segueing into the other book that you wrote, Dating Made Simple for Women. So let's talk about that particular book.
So the Dating Made Simple for Women, that book, it's about preparing yourself. It's about it has in it some steps that I took before I met my husband, before, like, in between some dating situations, getting to know who I am. Because I think if you don't get to know who you are, you can't expect anybody else to know you. I don't think that if I didn't know who I was, I wouldn't have been prepared for this relationship at all. I had some major anger issues because of trauma that I had when I was younger. I was molested early on, and I held that in. I suppressed that until I was 27. I'm 47 now.
Wow.
Didn't tell anyone, not even my mom. No one knew. But I was angry. I was throwing things. I was breaking stuff up. My words would cut people like a knife. And in previous relationships, that was the feedback that I would get from people. You are the nicest person You would do anything for anyone. But boy, when you get mad, it's like you are a totally different person. And so I took that criticism and I used that to say, something is wrong. This is not normal. And it was after a really bad breakup. I love this person a lot. And I just had like a meltdown, and I had to do a check on I checked on myself, and I got therapy, and we just went back in my life to see what happened. And that was what happened. I never told anybody. I suppressed it, and it was just eating away inside of me. And it finally came out, and I was able to do some things, some counting, and some things like that. And now I get angry, but I'm not breaking anything anymore. I'm not putting my fist through walls. I can talk to people without hurting them, because people used to say I would really hurt you, and I just thought I was being honest. I was just telling you how I felt. But I would make a grown man cry. My first marriage didn't last. It wasn't good anyway, but but I knew that I picked the wrong person. But after I basically dated myself, I knew what I was looking for, what type of person that I needed by my side. And that's what this book is about. You need to know who you are. All of us have baggage. All of us are going to bring baggage into relationship, because all of us have had things happen to us. But we need to be realistic on our deal breakers. If you don't like a smoker, why date one? Just to have a warm body next to you. If you go to church and you're filled with the Spirit, why would you date an atheist? Just to have a warm body next to you. And as women, that's this type of stuff that we're doing. We're selling ourselves so short when we don't have to. Someone will come along and fulfill you. If not, you're still alone, because you're not getting what you want. The conversation is not going to be there. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be fulfilled, because you're inside. You're going to be like, why did I do this? The person is going to make you angry. You're just not going to be in it, and it's not going to last. Or you're just going to go through life just blah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think going through all the steps that you went through to write this book and going through therapy made you a better parent and better spouse once you got married and met your husband, and a better step parent as well, because then you can kind of understand the trauma that your stepkids are going through?
Oh, most definitely. It definitely made me a better parent, because I don't, before I was just yelling at my boys, and, I learned being with my husband, yelling at them is it's going in and out, and they're not getting anything. Now I can, early on when we started dating, I can talk to them. We can, I can rationalize things a lot better. Again, I was just so filled with anger. Like, I wouldn't beat them or anything, but I really had to take time out. Like, you couldn't talk to me when I was angry. You would have to wait a day or so before I calmed down, because it was like rage. So that was something that, it had to be checked. This is the longest relationship that I've ever been in. The other relationships, I would sabotage them. I wouldn't care if they ended. This one, I wanted to maintain this one. I made sure that we did therapy together early, and
Mhm.
I wanted to do it actually before we got married, but we did it probably maybe a month into the marriage, because I wanted to make sure that he really understood me and the trauma that I had been through, why if I acted out, why I was acting out. But I have been a good girl. And this, I think, he saw my anger early on in the relationship, and how he hadn't seen it like prior to my original therapy, but he's seen it spike. My kids, especially my oldest, has seen it at its worst on someone else.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's been pretty bad. Um, Not fatal or anything like that, but yeah. So, but I am a totally better person now that it is out. It was like a raging bull inside of me. And I recommend for those who have had trauma in their past and they know that they are suppressing it, definitely to seek help for that. It will do you wonders in every aspect of your life, because it has helped me, I think, in every aspect of my life.
Now, you just mentioned that you wanted your husband to go into therapy with you before you got married, but you went in the month after. Was there any hesitation on his part to do it, or was he like, yes, go all in?
Yeah, we both knew that we wanted to do it. It was just timing. Yeah, it was just a timing, getting our schedules together. That's it.
Did he have a better appreciation of where you were coming from once you went through therapy? I know you probably opened up to him a little bit already about what had happened, but did he have a better appreciation of how you are able to, how far you've come?
We understood each other a lot more after therapy, why we are the way we are, because we are both individuals who take care of our families. We are like the caretakers of everyone in our families. So for us to be both heads and be together, especially me being a woman, and now to have a strong man is very difficult for me, because I've never had, I'm the type of girl who usually kind of talks down to men. So it was a change for me to be with a strong man. So there were some things with my mouth, even still. Okay, I may not be, cutting him down, but I had to let him lead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this was a different relationship for me, and it still is. So it's still a struggle when something happens when we're out in public and somebody screws up. I have to like
Mm-hmm.
stop for a minute and let him handle it, because he's the man. Because if he's not around, you better believe I am on it. I'm going to say something quick. But he understands that about me, because he understands, because of our therapy, who I am, what type of person I am. And I understand, because of our therapy, what type of person he is. He is a strong. We are almost the same person. We are leaders. We're used to taking care of people. Um, we don't need anyone to hold our hands for anything or guide us anywhere. So, with me being a woman in the house, it was a little bit of a challenge. But when we got together, what I told him is that, I don't want to think about anything anymore. I don't want to, you know, have to say, let's do this or let's go this place. I want you to decide the things, because that's what I've always done. I've always said, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is where we're going on vacation, in all my relationships. I don't want to do that anymore. So I try not to step over him in any kind of way, or I make sure that, he's always the man in the house.
So you just said both of you guys are caregivers, and you were talking about taking on in the very beginning your grandson. So let's talk about how that kind of rolls into a whole nother way of a relationship of taking care of the grandchild.
Yeah. So with that was very unexpected. I didn't want to do it at first because, I like to be on the go. I like to get up and go, especially with the youngest son now being 19. He'll be 20 in December. I haven't had a baby in the house in I don't know how long. So now having a 2-year-old. So when my son asked me to do this, I was like, yeah, I don't know. But when he presented all the evidence to me about it, I said, okay. It was really a no-brainer. So I had to apply for emergency custody, and I let my husband know what was going on, and then he couldn't resist, unfortunately. Because, he fell in shortly thereafter, and now both of us are in love with him being here, and we pray that he will go with his dad very soon. Very soon. It helps that my mom is here. She has another part of the house. She's here, so she's a big help. So at night, my grandson is with her in the other part of the house. So and right now, my youngest son takes him to school and picks him up. That's his job. That he's our intern for the summer.
I love
When he
that.
goes back to school, I'll be taking him to school and picking him up. Yeah.
I love that. Well, our time is almost up. Is there any one last nugget that you want to leave us with?
I just say love your family to pieces. If you're thinking about going into business, make sure your plan is straight, and be prepared for the curveballs, because there always will be some. But don't get bent out of shape when there are, because hopefully everything will fall right back into line. And that's about it.
And tell people where they can find you at.
So I'm on LinkedIn. I respond to LinkedIn faster than anything else. My website is talktonicole.com. There it is right there. I will be back on Facebook soon. So I don't want to, and it's just my name, Nicole Odom-Hardnett. Where else? You can email me, and I do respond to my email fairly fast if you'd like to talk to me. And it's Nicole@talktonicole.com.
Okay. And your books again?
My books are Blended to Perfection and Dating Made Simple for Women. I do have, I guess, the sequel or the next series to Dating Made Simple coming out soon. It's just in the final edits. And I'm trying to decide on the title for that. And that should be coming out. I would say I should have it ready in the next maybe 30 days or less. I do also have a children's book coming out. I'm just finishing up the illustration and kind of finalizing the title choices. And also I will have another book coming out, Women Who Boss Up Post-Pandemic. And that will be out in the next, I would say about maybe 5 months.
Wow, you're a busy woman. You multiple businesses, going from 2 different states, all this family, and then you're writing books as well. Wow, when do you find the time?
You know, last night I went to bed with glasses on, and the final edit of the second series like laying on me. Yeah. So you know, every moment counts. Every moment. So true. Yeah, every moment counts. I think I took my grandson over to the other part of the house, and that's what I did afterwards.
Well, Nicole, I want to thank you so much for being on Chats from the Blog Cabin. It was a joy, and I can't wait to see what else you come out with. And guys, I will drop all the links of where you can find her in the show notes. And once again, Nicole, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was definitely a pleasure.
And as always, guys, be blessed. And remember, keep chatting.